Hello everyone, my name is Awot, and today I'm going to be talking about all the new stuff that came out recently with Age of Mythology. That's right, I'm interrupting our regularly scheduled tree tier list to talk about this. I know so many of you are disappointed. Between the blood and gore and the new Aztec teasers, there's a lot of things to look at, but unfortunately I'm suffering some pretty bad eye strain right now. It came about a week ago, and I have been trying to rest it, but the job applications won't fill themselves out, my mod won't develop itself, and a bunch of other things, so I've been trying to lower my screen time significantly, even if it's not absolute zero. But yeah, the first thing we got was the Aztecs being teased. I'll leave a link down below and then I'll show the images on screen anyway. But yeah, it says it's going to come out April 21st, which is really early. This is the first time I've seen a company give a deadline and not wait till the very last of the deadline to release it. Because when they originally said that the DLC would come anywhere from April to June, I was expecting them to drop it June 30th in the same area that most companies do. But the fact that it's coming so early is pretty exciting. I'm so glad that a lot of us don't have to wait till the summer to see it. That being said, though, it's probably crunch time for my mod. I should probably get back to starting up developing it again and start the dev diaries and advance for the stuff. Although I have to be honest, some of the stuff you kind of can't develop for until it's out already, but I'll do what I can in advance and fix bugs on existing content in my mod. But yeah, let's take a look at the images. There's a post on Reddit that details what this user thinks that all the stuff is. That way you don't have to go through Googling all the stuff individually. I'm only going to show it for a brief moment and then link it down below to credit the original author. I don't want to just plagiarize their thing and use it for the video. So for the most part, when I react to things, I'm probably going to be saying what I think it is and not based on what the post, which is probably much more accurate than what I have to say, thinks it is. As out of respect for that individual who took their own time to research it. Again, though, it'll be linked in the description for you all to check it out. And I'll try my best to commentate on things that are not within that post. I'm also going to be obviously looking at this from a standpoint of someone who appreciates the environment as I make custom maps for the game. So I'm going to have more of a focus on the environment itself, what creatures I can use, and what kind of trees I can use. So first off, we got this very tropical environment looking area, which is a huge win because I know a lot of people have been asking for a tropical rainforest sort of biome that you could fight in. Although I'm not sure this is like an actual tropical rainforest biome or they're reusing marsh assets. Because if you look at the grass right here, I recognize that as marsh grass 2 grass. Yes, that's right, I've memorized all the grasses in the game. So they might just be using the marsh biome, and then they have tropical trees to sell the tropical look. In terms of new trees, I think we've hit the jackpot. I see so many new trees here. In fact, the only trees I recognize from the base game here is a few palm trees and some oak trees, which is a given. They're like awesome trees that can be used anywhere. I think this aquatic plant is a new decorative type of plant we don't have in the game. The closest thing I can identify is the reeds, but that doesn't look like what this is. And then we got this new animal right here. I think this might be a tapir. Interestingly, there's a baby variant too. Maybe the baby variant is just decorative for the cutscene, or are they gonna make us actually eat the babies? But besides that, we got some myth units, owl from the skeleton dude, two-headed snake, oversized axolotls, definitely oversized armadillo. I wonder if these guys were the ones that used to eat avocados. Because in case any of you guys didn't know that the animals that naturally eat avocados and spread their seed are all extinct, being described as the giant ground sloth, and humans are the only reason why avocados still exist to this day. And I don't know, unless they got giant ants for this armadillo to eat, I feel like this dude munches on avocados. Definitely matches the size to swallow the avocado seed whole and spread it later. Then you got this pretty awesome chick riding a jaguar. This is probably the cavalry unit. I'm glad they didn't use horses. And now we're good to move on to the desert image. And wow, this one is juicy. To most of you, this probably looks like a normal image, but to me as a map maker, this is huge. Age of Mythology only has two desert types at the moment. There's the Egyptian desert, which is so bright it'll probably burn your eyes. On maps that I make with the Egyptian desert, I make sure to give you guys nighttime lighting so it doesn't hurt you guys as much. And then there's the Chinese desert, which is a nice darker color, but it's missing a forest ground to go with it. Like other terrain types all have a forest ground that goes with it, so that when you use trees on the biome, it doesn't look too out of place. But the Chinese desert doesn't have a forest ground, so you have to use a grassy or the Egyptian desert forest ground. And since the Egyptian desert forest ground is a different color, it looks out of place, and obviously a grassy one in the desert is going to look out of place. And it's just a disaster. And it's essential to have forest grounds on your map so that the map highlights the forest as green, which is a huge important part of the mini map and gameplay to many players. If you were an early user of my mod, you noticed that some of my original maps didn't have forest grounds, and therefore the entire map was one color, and that was a disaster. Since then, I've definitely tried a lot harder to support people with vision problems by making things visually clear, by making sure all maps have this contrasting forest color, or making sure that small animals do not go alone and have a larger animal next to them so they're easily observable. So to finally have a darker sand color or desert kind of field alongside a forest ground that goes with it is huge. It's fantastic to finally have that. I especially love the color that I'm seeing on the screen right now compared to the alternative, which is the eye-burning Egyptian desert. Besides that, we see these rabbits, and I can only hope that they are the herdable unit of the Aztecs, since the current herdables, pigs, cows, and goats. I was told many times that they don't make sense since they are not really from the region at the time. So I was hoping these rabbits would be the herdables, but then I look at them, they got this funky little hat, which makes me feel like they're a myth unit. There's also the Aztec tale of the 400 rabbits, which I learned about from the same guide that I watched for the pronunciation of It's Papalo. in my previous video, he has a lot of amazing videos about Aztecs that I've been watching and trying to get informed about. And I'm pretty sure I did see him cover the 400 rabbits. So if I can find out again, I'll definitely link it in the description down below. But based on this goofy hat, I feel like this rabbit is a reference to that. So it might be a myth unit instead of a herdable. But if this is a myth unit though, this seems like a nightmare to click on. Like imagine you're trying to micro your hero to hit it, and it's just so tiny you keep accidentally clicking the other soldiers. So here's hoping to it's just a really funny looking herdable. Some might even say culturally appropriate herdable. Oh yeah, we also have a new desert tree. I'm so excited for this. It is a bit limey, so that means it'll contrast with grass and grassy biomes, but we can see it's obviously not a grassy biome, it's in a desert biome, so I think the liminess is fine. Just so excited to have a new desert tree besides the palm tree being used in all desert maps. Now, I don't know what tree this is, but if I had to guess, I would say it's the Joshua tree. But like I said, it's a bit limey, and the Joshua tree, if I recall, is a bit darker. Again, I'm recording this video with my eyes closed for the most part since they're just on fire and burning right now. And then we got this two-tailed scorpion. I have no idea who he is, but this also seems like a nightmare to micro if it's a unit. I really wonder how this is going to go out because it definitely doesn't seem cool enough to be a sort of myth unit, I think. But at the same time, it's definitely not an animal of sorts because it's got the team coloring. And to suggest this is a herdable might sound far-fetched, but this is the closest thing I got right now based on its size. Since if the myth unit is smaller than a cow, we know there might be some trouble clicking on it. Or it could be like a power unit, like Plague of Serpents. But yeah, even though there's a lot of interesting stuff going on screen, I'm probably going to leave that to the image I have linked, since that'll probably give you a more accurate representation. I'm going to be talking about other random things. And so I'll be moving on to the next image. And we got the long requested human caravan. Let's go. For some reason, everyone's been obsessed with having humans as a caravan as of late, and we got it. Now, in the image, it does look like they're supervising them as if it was a slave caravan, but I'm not sure the game will go down the slavery route given the modern audiences and censorship. So they might pose them as just traders who are moving on their own accord, kind of like how wandering merchants back in the day just traveled the worlds for the love of the game. This might be a similar scenario. You can even see one of the traders standing next to one of the soldiers talking to him. But who knows? I may be wrong. Age of Mythology might just be that hardcore and add slavery to the game as people have long requested. In terms of map making, though, I can see a jaguar here, which will probably be a predator type unit, like how the wolves currently function for the Greeks. So you'll just be moving your villagers around and they'll just jump your villagers for no particular reason besides for the love of the game. And yeah, jaguar felt like a given the culture and the fact that they already have a jaguar cavalry unit. Looking at the ground here, we get our look at the Aztec grass and dirt color. I'm not sure if many people care, so I'm just going to shorten it to I think this is a nice neutral color, but it's nothing too crazy. I think it looks better than the Greek grass, which has an aggressive yellow dirt though. And I like the color on the Japanese grass, but the dirt of the Japanese was very reddish. So very neutral colored, I like it. The only other pantheon I can think of a neutral colored grass would be Norse. It has a modest green and brown dirt. The other pantheons have something crazy going on. I think Chinese have the brightest green with the most yellowest dirt. Japan's got a really nice green to them in the grass, but the dirt is very red. So it'll be nice to have a second neutral color to work with. And then the cliffs are reddish brown that you would find in North America. I really appreciate that. This is a very unique color for cliffs, that's for sure. I definitely could use this as an accent in a lava map even if I want to stretch it a little bit, which is something I regularly do in my maps. I stretch assets since there's only something that we have to work with. But I definitely want to use this on a lot of normal maps as well because it just looks so unique and nice compared to our various other shades of gray, gray blue, and yellow that we have in the game. I think the closest thing we have to brown as is surprisingly the tundra cliff of all things. And yeah, I know some of you are probably watching this like One Earth, but yes, I've memorized all the terrain names and colors from Age of Mythology as a map maker. I kind of feel like how other people look at geologists when they obsess over rocks right now. Like the geologist is like, wow, what a fantastic rock, but to other people it's just like a normal rock. And that's probably what's happening here, but I have no shame about it since even if you guys don't know that I put this thought into it, I do it, and I know a lot of people enjoy it and play the maps. I see the plant in the background here is already an existing one. Ironically, it's called the water plant, but I don't see any water in this image. Yes, that's right. I memorized all the plants and even the bush colors too. I point out the human caravan here because it's more prevalent in this image than the last one, but I'm pretty sure there's a human caravan in the last one too. That also brings me to my next point about the campaign. I noticed they're constantly cycling colors that are being used right now. So the first two images featured a green team, and this image is featuring a blue team with a red team unit in there. And we know from the story description that the story is based on all three of the main characters and what their worshippers are doing right now. So I assume the red one's obviously going to be the guy they listed as the evil guy who's up to no good. And then the other two might be the blue and green, and they might be going on their own separate adventures that will all conjoin in the final mission. Is my best guess. I might be completely wrong about that, but I think this coloring is on purpose. But I've been wrong several times before. You guys watch my Demeter and other speculation videos. From the final image, we gotta look at this city. There's both a blue and a gray team present here. I assume the gray are just like NPC villagers, and the blue is gonna be the main character's team. It looks like we get a look at the Aztec colored bushes and plants, which are gonna be a darker green, similar to how marsh is, as opposed to like the Egyptian bush or plant, which has a lime green color to it. Unfortunately, it seems that they use the same berry farms that the original three and Atlantean pantheons use. So despite the popular hype, there is no corn farms. I'm so sorry. Looks like Haven exploration is gonna be boring with only two farm types you can cycle through. But hey, this might just be a beta. We might be in for a nice treat if they make it later. But I won't be disappointed if I load it up on launch day. I see berry farms because that's literally what's shown in the image here. Oddly enough, there's also what I assume are goats. I could only hope that they add sheep to the game, but I zoomed in on the image and I see horns on one of them, so I have to think that's a goat. In case you guys didn't know, I'm obsessed with the idea of Age of Mythology adding sheep to the game because Age of Empires already has it. So, but nevertheless, this seems like goats because of the horn, which is particularly funny because um there's a whole debate on how the Aztecs didn't have access to the other herdables, how they historically didn't have access to the goats, sheeps, cows, and pigs that the other pantheons do. But it looks like the developers taking their creative liberties and giving them goats anyway, because it seems they're a little shy on adding new herdables, which based on this context will probably mean the rabbit is not a herdable either, and is in fact a unit that you'll have to nightmarishly micro on. But who knows, this may just be early images or a one-off scenario. We'll just have to see. I see an olive-colored tree by this temple here. I'm not sure if this is one that's already in the game or was shown in a previous image. Like I said, my eyes are straining, but I think it looks pretty cool. The water, though, it's in a very nice murky color or a stormy sort of color. I think we do already have a stormy colored water in the game, but in terms of murkiness, I think this is a good one. Because marsh does have a water type, but it's just really disgusting green. Like, I'm sorry, I like green, but even for my standards, this looks rough. So I might just use the Aztec water on marsh maps from now on as a better substitute. But yeah, excited to add this watercolor to my maps. Since in case you guys didn't know, there's actually a limited amount of watercolors in the map based on what the developers put in. It's not like a toggle you slide or anything. And then we do also see marsh trees here. But as I talked about in the previous video, marsh tree stocks, they just keep going down. With each update, the marsh tree gets more competition for its own biome. Especially here, there's only so many marsh trees compared to this new lime tree that they've been pushing out. So it's safe to say the marsh tree is being choked out by competition. That being said, though, I think the grass right here does look like a darker shade than the marsh grass in the game. It does have the same texture that the marsh grass does, but it might just be a darker shade. And they might call it rainforest grass or something, which is something that they have not been too shy to do before, because I know the Chinese underworld assets is actually the Hades assets painted gray. But yeah, that's pretty exciting stuff. Unfortunately, though, there doesn't seem to be much stuff for winter or tundra biomes, but that's a given the tropical climate of the Aztecs. But winter/tundra fans, I'm sorry, I don't think there's gonna be much to add there. Now they didn't show off any underworld things though, but I'm coping that there might be something hidden from us in terms of underworld assets. Since in the description they did mention that one guy has to deal with a smoky underworld a lot. Something like that. I'll put it on screen for a more accurate description. But yeah, those are the things that I observed while looking through it. Very excited on what this means for my future map making endeavors, and also obviously I'm excited to play the Aztec Pantheon in my maps. The architecture looked amazing in that last photo, by the way. I really liked all the buildings. I think Aztec is gonna be a top 4 Pantheon for me in terms of like vibes of how it should be in the game. But yeah, I had already started development again on my mod, and here's how I'm planning on having it going. I plan for a mini update this Wednesday, then I'm planning for a maintenance update the day that the Aztecs come out. The maintenance update will just to be make sure that everything functions properly with the new Aztec assets. The biggest example being Awot Nomad will need to be fixed to support the new Aztec villagers. Or else when you choose the Aztec Pantheon for Awot Nomad before the update, it's just going to give you an Atlantean villager as a placeholder. But the update on the day of the launch will just be the bare minimum to make sure all my maps still function the way they are intended and won't add any new content for the Aztec DLC to my maps. And then within like hopefully a 1 or 2 week time period, I will get out the next major content update for my mod, which will hopefully feature the new assets. Since there's a lot of stuff that you just simply can't work with unless you know what it is in advance. Especially with it being program based, I would have to know all the code names and stuff. So here's hoping to Age of Mythology possibly giving some people an early look at the Aztec DLCs, the same thing they did the Japanese DLC and the Chinese DLC. And if I'm able to get some information out of that, then I'll be able to push the update out sooner. But if not, it might take a solid moment for me to get out the update. I think it was like a month after Japan came out that I updated the maps again. In case you're a new viewer who's reached it this far, I have a mod pack called Awot's Otherworldly Maps. It adds a bunch of maps to the game that you can share with people online who don't have the mod because the maps only use vanilla assets. Just so long as you host the game, the other people will be able to play it too. They just won't have the pretty images that come with the map. But yeah, that's all for me today, I think. If there's anything more, I'll probably put in the description as usual. Thank you for watching and have a good day as usual.